Ladies and gentlemen, we often think that change begins with action, with movement, with chasing, but the deepest and most lasting transformations begin not with what you do, but with what you're willing to see. In that first step, the one no one really talks about is this: accepting where you are without shame. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest truths to hold. Because we've been taught to hide our flaws, to bury our pain, to rush past the parts of ourselves that feel incomplete. We've been told that progress means always looking forward, never looking down at our own wounded feet. But how can you begin the journey to somewhere new if you're afraid to admit where you're starting from? There is power in saying, "This is where I am," and not with judgment, not with bitterness, just with honesty, to look at your life with open eyes, not to punish yourself, but to understand. To see your patterns, your choices, your wounds, and instead of running from them, to sit beside them for a moment. To say, "I see you, I know why you're here, but I won't let you define me anymore." That is courage. Not pretending to be further ahead than you are, not wearing a mask of success while breaking inside, but standing in your truth, no matter how messy or quiet or uncertain it feels. You don't have to have it all figured out to begin. You don't need to wait until your heart is healed or your plan is perfect. There is no ideal version of you that must exist before you're allowed to start growing. That's the lie we're sold, that we have to earn our right to transform. But the truth is, growth starts in the dark. It begins in the soil of your reality, and sometimes your reality will feel heavy. Sometimes it will carry grief, regret, shame, and confusion. Still, it is yours. And when you stop resisting it, when you stop trying to escape it, you can finally start shaping it. Acceptance is not giving up. It's not surrendering your dreams. It's not saying, "This is all I'll ever be." It's saying, "This is who I am today, and that is okay." It's letting go of the illusion that you should be someone else, somewhere else, something else by now. That toxic narrative that says if you're not constantly achieving, you're not enough. The truth is, you're allowed to pause. You're allowed to say, "I'm hurting, I'm healing, I'm human." And in that space, where you meet yourself without cruelty, real change begins. It's strange how we offer more compassion to others than we do to ourselves. We encourage our friends to take their time, to be gentle, to try again. But when it comes to our own hearts, we carry a whip instead of a hand. We speak in shame instead of softness. What if you changed that? What if the first step in your 6-month plan wasn't a new habit or a new hustle, but a new way of speaking to yourself? What if success started with how you see your own reflection? Because here's the truth: when you accept yourself as you are, you take back your power. You stop chasing approval. You stop molding yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. You realize that your story, with all its cracks and detours, is still worthy, still sacred, still enough. And from that place of truth, you can build something beautiful, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you finally believe you deserve more. Some people will misunderstand your softness for weakness. Let them. They've never had to sit alone with their own shadows. They don't understand the strength it takes to face yourself. To really see the parts of you that still ache and still choose to love them. But you know that healing is not linear, that progress is not loud, that becoming is not always about bold moves. It's often about quiet choices made in the stillness. So allow yourself that stillness. Breathe into it. Don't rush past it just to appear productive. Sit in the honesty of your now, not forever, just long enough to learn from it. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not the version of you that made choices from survival, from pain, from fear. But you are the one who gets to decide what comes next, and you can't do that while denying where you've been. You need to look gently at the places you're afraid to revisit, not to get stuck in them, but to free yourself from them. Because ignoring the truth does not heal it. Only love does, and love begins with acceptance. Some days you'll wake up and feel strong. Some days you'll feel like you're barely holding it together. Both are valid. Both are part of the journey. Don't measure your worth by how productive you were today. Measure it by how honest you were with yourself. Did you listen to your needs? Did you breathe through the hard moments? Did you give yourself grace when it got heavy? That is success. Quiet, radical success. No one can define your starting point except you. No one else knows the battles you're fighting internally. So don't let the world rush you into skipping your own process. You don't have to be at your peak to be on the path. You just have to be willing to start with the truth of who you are right now, not who you were, not who you think you should be, but who you are, flawed, tired, resilient, hopeful. In the next 6 months, you can change your life, but only if you stop pretending and start honoring your reality. You can set goals, create structure, chase dreams, but none of it will be sustainable if you're still ashamed of where you're starting. This is your foundation, and like any foundation, it must be built on something solid, something honest, something kind. Your life doesn't need a perfect beginning. It just needs a real one. Accept that. Embrace that, and from there, begin. Success means different things to different people, and that is the beauty of it. But the problem begins when we try to inherit someone else's definition without pausing to ask ourselves what it truly means for us. We scroll through curated images of achievement. We absorb voices telling us what to chase, what to own, who to become. And somewhere in all that noise, we lose our own truth. We lose the quiet knowing that lives inside us, the one that gently whispers, "This is what matters to me." The beginning of any meaningful success plan must be rooted in your definition of success, not society's, not your family's, not the world's, yours. Maybe you grew up thinking success was about having a title, a house, a reputation that makes people nod in approval. Maybe you learned to measure your worth in numbers, salary, followers, trophies, likes, and maybe you've achieved some of those things already and yet still feel empty. That's not failure, that's awakening. That's your soul reminding you that success without purpose is noise, and it will never be enough. You are allowed to redefine everything you were taught. You are allowed to say, "This doesn't feel like success to me." You are allowed to turn around, take a breath, and write your own meaning of a fulfilling life. Take a moment and ask yourself, what do I want to feel in 6 months? Not what you want to own, not what you want to prove. But what do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? Peace, freedom, energy, purpose. If your goals don't lead you there, then they are just distractions dressed as ambition. Don't chase something just because it looks good from the outside. Chase what feels aligned on the inside, because alignment is where fulfillment begins, and fulfillment is the foundation of real success. Success is not about constantly climbing. It's about knowing which mountain is worth climbing at all. You could spend 6 months sprinting toward a goal that never truly belonged to you. Or you could spend that same time moving slowly, intentionally, towards something that reflects your real values. Something that, even in the struggle, feels worth it. That is the difference between burning out and breaking through. The journey becomes lighter when it's honest, and defining your version of success doesn't mean it will be easy. In fact, it often becomes harder, because suddenly you are no longer following a ready-made map. You are carving your own path. That path might be misunderstood. People might question it. But if you wait for everyone to understand your vision, you will spend your life standing still. Clarity doesn't come from others. It comes from you. It grows in silence, in reflection, in asking the uncomfortable questions. What am I doing this for? Who am I becoming in the process? Does this dream still belong to me? The world will always offer you templates. Graduate, get the job, marry, buy a house, work, retire. But if your heart doesn't feel safe or seen in that pattern, you are not wrong. You are simply waking up to a deeper calling. And success that ignores your truth is not success. It's self-abandonment. The cost of pretending is too high. It might give you status, but it takes away your peace, and peace is the one thing success should never steal. Give yourself permission to create a version of success that matches your soul. Maybe for you, success looks like time with family, time to create, time to rest without guilt. Maybe it looks like freedom, The ability to say no, to choose your projects, to walk away from toxicity. Maybe it looks like impact, leaving the world better than you found it, even in quiet, unnoticed ways. Whatever it is, name it, own it, and build around it, because the life that feels right to you is the life you were born to live. Sometimes success is not reaching higher, but returning to what matters, reconnecting with what lights you up, even if the world calls it small. Maybe it's the joy of starting something from scratch. Maybe it's having less, but needing less. Maybe it's healing relationships, finding faith again, or simply feeling proud of the person you are becoming. These things don't trend, they don't always go viral. But they are real and they are yours. Defining your success also means letting go of comparison. You cannot measure your journey with someone else's ruler. Their timeline is not your deadline. Their win is not your loss. The moment you stop competing is the moment you start creating. Creating a life that feels like home. Creating goals that feel meaningful. Creating joy that doesn't need to be posted or validated, just felt. And when you know your version of success, you begin to move differently. You stop chasing things you never needed. You stop saying yes to things that drain you. You start protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You start saying no without guilt, and yes without fear. Because every decision becomes a step toward alignment, not approval. Every action becomes a mirror of your truth. In these 6 months, you are not trying to become someone new. You are trying to return to who you've always been beneath the noise. That version of you who knew how to dream with innocence, how to love without fear, how to trust their own voice. That version might have been buried under expectations, fear, and pressure. But it's still there, and it's waiting for you. So let this be the foundation of your plan, not a checklist of what the world wants from you, but a commitment to what you want for yourself. Because success is not about proving anything to others. It's about living in a way that proves something to yourself. That you are worthy, that you are enough, that you are free to create a life that honors your heart. You have 6 months, not to impress, but to align, not to chase, but to come home, not to strive harder, but to live truer. Let the definition of your success be the most beautiful rebellion against a world that told you otherwise. Let it be soft. Let it be powerful. Let it be yours. We often believe that building a successful life requires force, hustle, and noise. That we must push harder, do more, be tougher. But what if strength isn't in the intensity? What if strength is found in softness, in grace, in the quiet promise you make to yourself each morning? I will keep going gently. In a world that glorifies burnout and calls it ambition, choosing a routine that nourishes you instead of exhausting you is revolutionary. Creating gentle routines doesn't mean you're less serious about your goals. It means you respect yourself enough to make the process sustainable, to make the journey one you can actually live through, not just survive. We live in cycles of extremes, either doing too much or doing nothing at all. We sprint for days, chasing our goals like wildfires, only to collapse under the weight of our own expectations. And then, when we can't keep up, we feel like we've failed. Not because we weren't capable, but because we were never taught to pace ourselves. We were taught to prove, not preserve. But the truth is, you cannot pour from a dry cup. You cannot serve your vision if you are constantly running on empty. That's where gentle routines come in, not as a shortcut, but as a strategy, a rhythm of living that honors your energy while still leading you forward. There is a grace in doing small things consistently, a quiet magic in showing up without fanfare, without pressure. Maybe your morning doesn't begin with a cold shower, a 5 a.m. workout, and an hour of journaling. Maybe it starts with 10 deep breaths, a warm cup of tea. A moment to look out the window and remind yourself that life is still happening, and you are still here. That counts, that matters. You don't need to copy anyone else's routine. You need to build one that fits your season, your soul, your story. Because a routine isn't about perfection. It's about rhythm. It's about building a space in your day where your nervous system can exhale, where your mind can reset, where your heart can reconnect with why you started in the first place. When you give yourself a structure that doesn't demand, but supports, you give yourself room to breathe, you allow success to grow from a place of peace, not panic. Gentle routines are not passive. They are powerful in a different way. They teach you how to listen to your body instead of override it. They teach you to work with your energy instead of against it. Some days will be high, energy and focused. Others will be scattered, slow, uncertain. That's okay. You are not a machine. You are a living, breathing being. And the more you accept that, the more you can craft a life that actually works for you. There's a difference between discipline and rigidity. Discipline says, I will show up. Rigidity says, if it doesn't look perfect, it doesn't count. Choose discipline, the kind that allows flexibility, the kind that forgives, the kind that says, today I did my best and that is enough. Your routine doesn't need to be fixed, it needs to be alive. It needs to evolve as you evolve. It needs to support the person you are today, not the person you were 6 months ago. Start small. Don't build an entire life overhaul overnight. Start with one promise to yourself each day. Maybe it's reading for 10 minutes. Maybe it's walking after dinner. Maybe it's journaling one page before bed. These are not small things. They are anchors. And over time, they become the habits that hold your future. The difference between who you are and who you want to be is found in the choices you repeat. But those choices don't need to be dramatic. They just need to be consistent. And consistency grows when you remove the pressure to be perfect. When you allow room for rest, when you stop equating worth with output. You don't have to earn your right to slow down. You don't have to prove your potential by overextending yourself. The most successful people are not the busiest. They are the ones who know how to balance effort with restoration. They understand that doing their best doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing what matters with care. Maybe your gentle routine means starting your day without your phone. Maybe it means scheduling breaks in your work. Maybe it means learning how to stop, how to say no, how to not fill every silence with more doing. These choices are powerful. They are how you reclaim your energy, how you protect your vision, because the path to success is not just paved with action. It's also paved with intention. There will be days when you feel like doing everything. And there will be days when even the smallest task feels impossible. Let your routine hold you in both. Let it be the steady ground beneath your feet, whether you are running or crawling. This is not about performance. This is about protection of your energy, your joy, your peace. And remember, building a gentle routine is not about removing challenges. It's about building resilience, a rhythm that teaches you how to keep showing up, not out of fear, but out of love. Out of love for your vision, out of love for your future self, out of love for the life you are quietly creating, because that's what routines do. They shape who you become, not in loud, obvious ways, but in the quiet moments day after day. You won't always see the progress. You won't always feel different. But one day you'll look back and realize that the gentle way you showed up for yourself became your strength. That the small promises you kept became the foundation of your transformation. And that success was never about doing the most. It was about doing what mattered consistently with care. So build gently. Build slowly, build with love, and trust that even the softest steps can lead you somewhere extraordinary. We often underestimate the power of our environment and how deeply it shapes who we become. It's not just about where we live or what surrounds us physically. It's about the people, the energy, the voices, and the atmosphere we immerse ourselves in daily. When you are on a journey of transformation, especially over a focused period like 6 months, your environment can either become the wind beneath your wings or the weight on your back. It's not always easy to recognize this because we grow accustomed to our surroundings. Familiarity becomes comfort, even when that comfort quietly holds us back. But if you're serious about change, you must be willing to examine your environment with clarity, honesty, and courage. Sometimes the hardest part about changing your environment is accepting that not everyone can come with you. That certain relationships you've held onto for years, maybe even decades, no longer reflect where you're headed. Some people are tied to the version of you that you're trying to outgrow. They remember the stories you've already decided to rewrite, and often they will resist your change, not out of cruelty, but because your growth challenges their comfort. When you start rising, it holds up a mirror, and not everyone is ready to look. That doesn't make you unkind, that makes you aware, and awareness is the birthplace of all transformation. If you want to evolve, surround yourself with people who speak life into your vision. People who don't just tolerate your dreams but believe in them. People who ask about your progress, who celebrate your small wins, who remind you who you are on the days you forget. It's not about finding perfect people. It's about finding aligned energy. You'll know them by how you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel inspired, understood, uplifted? Or do you feel drained, belittled, invisible? Listen to that feeling. It tells you everything, and beyond people, look at your physical space. Your room, your desk, your phone. Does it support your growth or distract from it? Sometimes clearing space physically is the first step to clearing it emotionally. Maybe it's time to let go of the clutter, not just the objects but the noise. Old things that hold old energy, notifications that hijack your focus, habits that consume your time but feed nothing in return. Transformation doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in clarity, and clarity often starts with simplifying. It's also important to create emotional environments that allow you to be honest with yourself. You need spaces where you don't have to perform strength, where you can admit when you're tired, scared, or unsure. Spaces where vulnerability is not a weakness, but a bridge to truth. Whether it's a journal, a trusted friend, a quiet corner where you meet yourself each morning, build these emotional sanctuaries, because your growth journey will require honesty, and honesty needs safety to breathe. Sometimes the most transformative decision you can make is to distance yourself from what feels heavy, even if it makes sense on paper. Just because a job pays well doesn't mean it's feeding your soul. Just because a friendship has history doesn't mean it has a future. Just because something looks good from the outside doesn't mean it feels good on the inside. Your environment is not just a backdrop. It is a living, breathing part of your story, and you are allowed to rewrite it. You are also allowed to outgrow people without anger, to move on from places without resentment. Growth doesn't always need a dramatic ending. Sometimes it's a quiet choice. A gentle release, a silent shift in direction. The goal is not to fight what no longer fits, it's to bless it for what it taught you and move on with grace. Let your peace be louder than your need to explain. And in the process of changing your environment, don't forget to become part of someone else's empowering space. Be the friend who celebrates instead of competes. Be the energy that uplifts instead of drains. Be the presence that listens, holds, and reflects the best in others. We are not only shaped by our environment, we also shape the environment around us, and the more light you give, the more light you attract. Your habits are part of your environment too. The things you repeat become the energy that surrounds you, the way you speak to yourself, the way you treat your body, the way you choose rest or resistance. These choices, though small, create momentum, and momentum is everything, because change doesn't come from a single grand gesture. It comes from 100 tiny shifts that compound over time, and those shifts are nurtured by an environment that supports them. Think about what kind of energy you want to wake up to, what kind of conversations you want to have, what kind of content you want to consume, what kind of thoughts you want to hear in your mind. Then ask yourself, does my current environment reflect this? And if it doesn't, how can I begin to shift it, bit by bit, one conscious choice at a time? You don't need to change everything overnight, but you do need to start making decisions that honor where you're going. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is walk away from the noise, from the pressure, from the standards that never belong to you. You don't have to stay anywhere you feel small. You don't have to shrink to keep peace. You don't have to dim just to be accepted. Your environment should never ask you to compromise your light. It should help it shine. If you want to create a 6-month success plan, make changing your environment one of the first steps. not just externally, but internally too. Begin to notice the thoughts that run through your mind like background music. Are they empowering? Are they yours? Or are they echoes of criticism, comparison, and fear? Begin replacing them with gentler, stronger ones. Speak to yourself like someone who matters, because you do. The space you create for yourself, physically, emotionally, socially, is the soil where your future will grow. If it's toxic, your roots won't take. If it's shallow, you'll always feel unstable. But if it's safe, nourishing, and honest, you will bloom. Maybe not instantly, but inevitably. So protect that space. Guard it with intention, and trust that the more you align your environment with your truth, the more naturally your growth will unfold. Success is not simply the result of a plan well executed. It's the result of a mind set intentionally cultivated every single day. So many people believe that success is only for the lucky, the privileged, or those who were born with an extraordinary advantage. But the truth is, it starts in the mind. What you believe about yourself, what you repeat to yourself in silence, the way you frame challenges, and how you speak to your potential. All of this forms the mindset that becomes the foundation of your reality. You cannot build a successful life on a foundation of doubt, fear, and self-sabotage. You have to train your mind to see beyond where you are to where you're capable of going. Because if your mind can't hold the vision, your hands will never build it. Every single day, your thoughts either move you forward or pull you back, and often it's not the world outside that stops you. It's the voice inside, the voice that says, "Who do you think you are? You're not ready. You've failed before, you'll fail again." That voice can feel like the truth, but it's just fear wearing a mask, and the most powerful thing you can do is start talking back to it. You don't silence fear by pretending it doesn't exist. You disarm it by choosing to believe in something greater, your purpose, your growth, your resilience. A winning mind, it doesn't mean you don't struggle. It means you've trained yourself to keep showing up even when you do. One of the greatest myths is that confidence is something you're born with. But in reality, confidence is built, choice by choice, day by day. It's built every time you do something you were afraid of. It's built when you keep a promise to yourself, when you stop running from failure and start learning from it, when you allow yourself to be a beginner without judgment. A strong mindset knows that progress doesn't look like perfection. It looks like persistence, like trying again even when you're tired, like choosing growth over comfort even when it's uncomfortable. There will be days in your 6-month journey when your motivation fades, days when you feel stuck, unworthy, or behind. That's when mindset becomes your anchor. That's when you learn that discipline will carry you when motivation disappears. And that's when you realize that you don't need to feel powerful to act powerfully. You just need to decide that your dreams are worth the discomfort. Decide that your future is worth the fight. Decide that your current limits are not your permanent ones. Every decision you make in moments of doubt is where mindset is either weakened or strengthened. To build a powerful mindset, you have to become intentional about what you allow into your mental space. You cannot feed your mind with negativity, fear, based content, constant comparison, and expect to thrive. Your mind is soil. What are you planting in it? Who are you listening to? What are you reading? What kind of language are you using with yourself? Are your thoughts watering your dreams or drowning them? It's not enough to hope for success. You have to start thinking like the version of you who already has it. What would that person believe? How would they act? What would they no longer tolerate? Begin to adopt that identity now, not later, and it's not just about positivity. It's about perspective. A strong mindset doesn't mean you ignore pain, it means you give it purpose. You don't pretend life is easy. You accept that it's hard and you show up anyway. You learn to reframe failure as feedback. You start seeing obstacles not as punishments, but as pathways to your strength. This is not toxic positivity. This is resilience, the kind that says, even if I fall, I rise. Even if I doubt, I'll still act. Even if no one else believes in me, I will believe in me. Affirmations are powerful tools in this process. not because they're magical, but because they redirect your focus. When you say, I am capable, I am resilient, I am enough, you begin to counter years of conditioning that said otherwise. And at first, it might feel fake. That's normal. You're not lying to yourself. You're reminding yourself of who you were before the world taught you to shrink. And with repetition, those words begin to shape your beliefs. And your beliefs shape your behavior, and your behavior shapes your reality. A growth mind, it also teaches you to stop tying your worth to results. You are not only valuable when you succeed, you are valuable because you are evolving, because you are trying, because you are growing into the person you were always meant to be. Detach from the outcome and attach to the process. Fall in love with the work, with the practice, with the quiet days that no one sees. That's where transformation happens, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows where you train your mind to keep going. Surrounding yourself with others who have strong mindsets can also elevate your own. Iron sharpens iron, and you'll notice that people with powerful minds don't focus on what they can't control. They focus on what they can. They take responsibility. They manage their emotions. They move with intention. Being around that kind of energy will challenge you, yes, but it will also remind you of what's possible. In this 6-month journey, your mindset will be tested, and that's not a bad thing. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens when you're stretched, when you're uncertain, when you're doing things for the first time and wondering if you're doing them wrong. But each time you push through that resistance, your mindset expands. You start realizing that the limits you once accepted are not real. They were just familiar, and you begin to rewrite the narrative from I can't to I'll try, from I'm not ready to I'm learning, from I always fail to I've grown so much. You don't need to have it all figured out to have a winning mindset. You just need to commit to showing up with faith, faith in your capacity to grow, faith in your ability to rise again, faith that the future you dream of is already waiting for the mindset strong enough to hold it. And if you fall, you get up. If you doubt, you breathe. If you struggle, you remember. This is what building strength looks like. It's not always pretty, but it's always worth it. We live in a world that constantly urges us to move faster, work harder, and accomplish more. It's easy to fall into the trap of measuring our worth by our productivity, comparing our progress to others, and believing that rest is a sign of weakness. But in reality, rest is not only essential, it is powerful. Rest is where we recalibrate. It's where we heal, where we gather energy to keep going, where we listen to our own voice without the noise of the world. Rest is not quitting. It's not giving up. It's pausing with purpose so that we can move forward with clarity and strength. When you're working toward a big goal or trying to transform your life in 6 months, you will face moments of burnout. You will feel stretched thin, overwhelmed, and sometimes lost. That's not because you're incapable. It's because you're human. We weren't designed to operate like machines. Even the sun rests at night, the ocean ebbs and flows, and nature honors seasons of growth and stillness. Why should we be any different? The truth is, you can't pour from an empty cup. And if you keep pushing through without giving yourself time to recharge, you'll eventually break down. Not because you're weak, but because you never paused to breathe. Learning to rest requires as much strength as pushing through. It takes courage to say today, I need to slow down. It takes wisdom to listen when your body is exhausted or your mind is racing. And it takes maturity to understand that rest is part of the process, not a break from it. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is step back, let your mind wander, let your heart speak, let your soul catch up with your ambition, because in that stillness, something magical happens. You reconnect with your why. You remember what matters. You refill the parts of you that life has drained. But rest is not just about sleep or taking a day off. It's also about boundaries, about knowing when to say no, about protecting your energy from people or situations that leave you depleted. It's about creating space in your schedule, not just to work, but to live, to be, to enjoy simple moments that don't earn you praise or profit, but bring you peace. Rest is saying, I choose myself. Even when the world tells you to keep going, It's an act of rebellion in a culture that glorifies exhaustion, and it's one of the most radical forms of self-respect. In the 6-month journey to success, you will need moments to reflect. Not every week will be filled with achievements. Some weeks will be about sitting with your emotions, understanding what's working and what's not, and adjusting your path. Rest gives you that perspective. It allows you to zoom out from the chaos and see the bigger picture. When you pause, you're not losing time. You're gaining insight. You're giving yourself the grace to process and the strength to pivot. And in that space, new ideas are born, creativity is rekindled, and your spirit is renewed. Many people think that if they rest, they'll fall behind. But what's the point of moving fast if you're headed in the wrong direction? What's the value of constant hustle if it leaves you disconnected from yourself? True success is not just about what you achieve, it's about how you feel while achieving it. If your journey drains your joy, it's not sustainable. If your goals demand your well-being as a sacrifice, they're too expensive. You deserve a life that includes both progress and peace, and rest is how you make room for both. There's also emotional rest, the kind that comes from letting go. Letting go of perfectionism, letting go of the need to prove yourself, letting go of carrying other people's expectations on your shoulders. Sometimes the reason we're so tired isn't because of what we're doing, but because of what we're holding. We carry invisible weights: regret, guilt, fear, shame. Rest allows us to put those down even for a while, to say, "I am enough right now," without needing to earn it. That kind of rest heals more deeply than sleep ever could. You must also give yourself permission to rest without guilt. That's the hardest part for many. We've been conditioned to believe that rest is lazy, selfish, or indulgent. But rest is responsible. It's sustainable. It's what allows you to show up fully for the people and dreams you care about. You are not meant to be in constant motion. Just like a heartbeat rises and falls, your energy will too. Honor that rhythm. Trust that stepping back doesn't mean you're falling behind. It means you're preparing for your next leap. There will be moments when you're tempted to keep going just to avoid facing your feelings, to bury your anxiety in busyness, to numb your pain with productivity. But rest invites you to feel, to face, to heal. It asks you to be honest with yourself, to check in with your body, your emotions, your spirit. And sometimes what you discover in rest is that what you truly need isn't more effort, but more compassion, more grace, more space to just be. In your 6-month plan, include time for reflection, for breathing, for walking without a destination, for listening to music, for sitting in silence, for laughing without reason, for reconnecting with nature, with people you love, and most importantly, with yourself. These moments won't be measured in metrics, but they will fuel your soul in ways that no achievement can. They will remind you that you are more than your goals, that your worth is not tied to how much you produce, that your value exists in your presence, not just your performance. And as you grow, you'll begin to understand that rest is not separate from success. It is part of it. The most fulfilled people are not the ones who never stop. They are the ones who know when to pause, who know that strength isn't about constantly doing. It's about knowing when to simply be. When you learn to rest with intention, you show up with more energy, more clarity, and more purpose. You make better decisions, you build with care, you live with alignment. So rest, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Rest not because you're behind, but because you're human. And in that rest, you'll find the strength to rise again. Stronger, wiser, more in tune with your truth, because success isn't just about reaching the destination. It's also about learning how to carry yourself through the journey, with peace in your heart and strength in your soul.